Croeso pawb. Welcome and greetings. Welcome and greetings to the spirits of this land, to all the animals, the birds, the creatures, the plants, the trees. Welcome to the elementals, to the elements, to the four directions. The story I have come to share with you today is partly my own story and partly an exploration of myth. I am intrigued by the clues myths hold into the ways of our ancestors, into their beliefs, their practices, their relationship to the land, to nature, to supernature. I am intrigued by portals. Places where we can more easily access realms of healing, inspiration, wisdom. In these places, our ancestors gathered, we gathered in past times, deeply aware of the importance of these places. I invite you now to enter into this portal of our story this evening. We begin in the east. London, Llundain, 1992. I'm on a dance floor. It's incredible. The music is such as I have never heard before. Music that my body just knows how to dance to when I let go and allow it. I make new shapes. And with these new shapes come new feelings, new perceptions, inspirations, and around me everyone else is doing the same. Together we are one big, joyful explosion of humans. And among us is one particular human. To me, he is a wizard. The spell is cast. The enchantment lasts for 3 years, at the end of which time I find myself with a miraculous wonder child, a fatherless boy. The wizard having magically vanished back into the wild other world from which he came. Canolfan Prydain, the centre of Britain, a long, long time ago. It is May Eve. Within the earth, 2 little piglets stirred. And as they stirred and grew and snuffled and yawned, they felt tendrils of mycelium lighting up around their tender forms, and their mother's whispers roused them. Wake up, my glorious ones, and grow. And as they grew, they lit up like two electric strands on a double helix spiral, growing to their full selves, becoming their dragon selves, one red, one white. And as the dragons awoke, the people gathered. They danced in circles around fires, in stone circles, upon the wild hilltops, around carved figures of horses in the land, and in the sweet places where the dragon piglets woke. They fed them with their offerings, encouraged them with all manner of wild frolics and fornications. This was how it had been for forever and a day, until this day, story beginning day. This day, things changed. The dragons woke and rose at dawn, but their song was a scream, their violence extreme as they slashed with their talons and ripped with their fangs, their pain piercing stakes throughout the land. From the east to the west, from south to the north, the unstoppable blast of sound poured forth. Leaves withered, birds fell from the sky, people lost their minds, some people even died, women lost their babies and became barren ever after. The rivers and lakes became stagnant, and the wind whipped the hawthorn blossoms from the trees. No corn ripened, nor barley, nor wheat, nor babies conceived, nor fruit on the trees, nor lambs, calves, chicks, nor even frogs born. Some things died, some things remained unborn. Now at that time, the Isle of Britain was ruled by King Llydd, a fair and honest king. And the people petitioned him most earnestly to take action to remedy this terrible plague that afflicted lives and land. So at Llydd, the following year, when Calon May Eve came around again, he made his way under instruction from his wiser brother, Llefelys, to the very centre of Britain. He took with him a vat of sweetest mead and 2 stone jars. He sank the vat of mead into the ground, covered it with a silk cloth, and hid himself, filling his ears with beeswax to ward against the screaming. He hid in a bush and waited. Once more, the dragon piglets stirred. They rose up out of the ground. Their terrible scream began again as they fought each other once more, tooth and claw, spiralling around and around until at last their power waned and they became 2 oxens charging through the ether, clashing horns. See them now as they become once more their little piglet forms, falling down, 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 through the mud-coloured cloth, into the vat of mead, supping and slurping every last gulp of that mead, and falling into a deep, contented oblivion. And then Llydd took his opportunity and stowed the little piglets into the stone jars, sealing them shut and carting them from one place of profound power to another in the west. Wales. Once in Wales, he made his way northwards, heading to what he had been told is the strongest place in the land. When he reached that place, he found a high hill, surrounded on each side by guardian mountains. On the top of that hill, he found a pool and he cast those stone jars into the pool with the dragon piglets inside. They sank to the bottom. The land shifted and moved and closed up over the pool, sealing the little piglets, the fetuses, into the belly of the hill to gestate for a long, long time. London, 1996. My son is a year old. My mum comes to visit. She insists that I take a day off, tells me I must go off on my own somewhere for the day. I gratefully accept the invitation. I have heard of a place called Uffington. It is a place of ancient power, a place where the carved Neolithic figure of a horse is carved into the chalky hillside. It is to this place that I am drawn on my precious day to myself. It is a fine day, and the expanse of views in all directions is stunning. Really a place to be able to gain perspective. I have a lot to process. I walk and weep and walk and weep. And finally, I become calm. And I find myself sitting in the eye of the chalk horse figure, meditating, feeling the healing power of this place come through me. Then I become aware of a presence somewhere in my consciousness, totally unexpected, unbidden, unsought for. The presence of Myrddin. He's there in the eye of the horse with me, speaking to me. I cannot remember everything that he said, but there is one thing that stuck with me. You cannot hope to comprehend the meaning of your own story from the limited perspective of the conditioned mind. Know this: your story is part of a much bigger story, and it is a wondrous one. It was what you might call a moment of truth, a moment of awakening to the mythic quest of life, a moment that subtly shifted the trajectory of my life in a way that eventually brought me to Wales, becoming a storyteller. I'd like to sing a song with you now, actually. For in this journey to Wales, I discovered many things. I came seeking the stories. I came seeking Myrddin. And I found the Black Book of Carmarthen, amongst other things. And this song comes from that book. And I'd like you to join me if you're willing. And you just need to sing one word. And it's the word for apple trees, which in Welsh is afatlenau. So, afatlenau is the word. Excuse me. And it goes like this. Afatlenau, 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 afatlenau. Keep going. Sweet apple tree that grows in the glade, its peculiar power hides it from the lords of Rivet. A crowd at its trunk, a host around it would be, a treasure for them brave men in their ranks. Sweet apple tree, a red flowered tree that grows in the hidden forest of Celithon. Though it be sought, it will not be found, owing to its peculiar qualities. So, the princess in the circle, she soon found that she was pregnant, and she was taken in by the nuns in the priory in Carmarthen. They would take care of her. They would be her midwives. She birthed a son. He was one who was destined to be able to re-enchant the land and awaken the people. One who would sing the songs and dream the dreams, and in whose spine the dragon energy still flowed. She called him Ambrosius. But Ambrosius could not remain forever within the protective circle of the nuns. He was called upon to give a service to his king, King Vortigern, a usurper king who was on the run from the Saxons. This king was seeking to build a fortress in what he had heard was the strongest place in the land, a place surely that would keep him safe. Beneath the earth, the dragon piglets awoke. Their reverberations toppled whatever building works Vortigern's masons had begun. This happened again and again each day. And young Ambrosius was expected to make the ultimate offering to appease the spirits of this place and enable the fortress to be built. His own life. He was to be sacrificed, his blood sprinkled on the land. So said Vortigern's advisors. But young Ambrosius was bold and canny and confident, and he spoke out to King Vortigern. He told him his advisors were fools. They had no idea what was beneath this hill, but he knew. He told Vortigern to instruct his men to dig down beneath the earth and drain the pool that they found there. Then they would see what was there. And Vortigern, impressed by this boy, and curious and determined to build his fortress, did just that. The dragon piglets broke out, hatching out of their seed pod stone jars. They stretched out their leathery wings. They grew to their full size, one red, the other white, beating their wings in an awesome display, spiraling around one another with flashes of fiery breath and bright talons, at last chasing one another away north over the mountains with echoing cries. And that was when young Ambrosius gave his first prophecy. It was a prophecy of the rising up of the people of the land, overcoming the oppressors. It was a prophecy of the coming of the boar of Cornwall, of an age of peace, of a time of upheaval. It was a prophecy of the restoration of the ancient ones to their homes, the restoration of the goddess, the fertility of the soil, the return of the healing maiden, she who could dry up rivers with her breath, cleanse the land, forgive the people, flowing compassionate tears. It was a prophecy warning of complacency. It was a prophecy of the awakening of humanity. And when he had finished this prophecy, Ambrosius became Myrddin. Myrddin Emrys, You see, there are 3 Myrddins. This Myrddin Emrys was one of the 3 skillful bards, so say the Welsh triads. The others being Taliesin, himself once known as Myrddin, and the other Myrddin ap Morfran, he of the Selgovae tribe, the men of the north. Selgovae meaning the hunters, they whose totem was the wolf. After the liberation of the dragons, Myrddin Emrys remained in that place for many years, and it became known as Dinas Emrys. It is to this day. You can go and visit this place. It's wonderful. And the dragons? Well, last seen flying northwards, perhaps they followed in the path of the Druids. Perhaps they were seeking out this next Myrddin. But weren't the Druids all wiped out by the Romans? That's what the Romans and their history makers would have you believe. But many survived. There was a massacre. But many escaped, taking with them their mysteries and their knowledge. Some heading to the west, to Ireland, others northwards to what is now Scotland. Many of them settling in the remote islands, and some with the tribes of the north, over the wall, it being the northernmost limit of the Roman administration. So let's follow those dragons and druids and take a peek over that wall. It was a land ruled by 13 kings, those who had refused to fall under Roman authority. They were independent. They reigned in glory, fighting the Picts, the Angles, and each other. The profusion of their generosity, the splendour of their courts, and the fame of their deeds was praised by songs of the greatest bards. The land at that time was covered in a thick, impenetrable forest, inhabited by all kinds of animals. Foxes, wolves, badgers, beavers, elk, lynxes. And the domains of the 13 kings were along the fringes of this forest, the people living alongside the forest and the animals, mindful that all the things of their lives were dependent on it. Also knowing that they must feed the wild heart of nature in return for all the gifts she gives. They gave offerings. They worshipped the great mother goddess who births all life and receives the dead. And mediating this vital relationship with nature and supernature were the shaman priests and priestesses, the men and women of knowledge, the healers, midwives, seers, shapeshifters, geomancers, astrologers, lawmakers, storytellers. And chief among them was Myrddin ap Morfran, who was all these things and a highly skilled warrior to boot. He was allied to King Gwenddolai of the Selgovae tribe, the wolf people. See him now, a man of rugged intensity and piercing, intelligent eyes, dressed in deerskins, carrying a staff of ash, coiled in copper, a gold torque around his neck, sign of nobility, and at his side, a wild wolf who accompanied him wherever he went. Picture them now, easily traversing the rocky train as they make their way towards Gwenddolai's court. When they reach it, the gates open and they are met with a profusion of sounds and smells. Pigs squealing, cattle moaning, shouts and jeers of the young warriors practicing their skills. There is bantering and bartering and wood chopping and butchering and all kinds of noises. Tethered dogs snarling and snapping at Myrddin and the wolf as they passed by, swiftly silenced with a motion of Myrddin's staff. Within Gwendolei's hall, a heat of feasting is in progress. Warriors sat on either side on low couches covered with skins, making full advantage of their host's generosity, for the upholding of their pledges of loyalty to him was dependent on it. Platters of meat piled high, pitchers of beer and ale and wine and mead, and King Gwendolen, seated, listening to the boasting of the men, the claims to lineage, for the greater their merits, the greater were his. It was an expected ritual. The greater the merits of the tribe. Beside him, on either side, were two wooden pillars, on each of which was a huge vulture. They flapped and screeched as Myrddin entered, his wolf at his side. Ah, Myrddin, you are most welcome. You have been missed. Have you come with songs or with news? Myrddin looked grave. With news, Lord, and of the most troubling kind. King Myrddin has attacked Caer Laverock. The room was roused. The men shouting, exclaiming, getting to their feet, some reaching for the weapons glinting on the walls. All wanted to know. The women, what about the women? How far had the attack progressed? Were their priestesses safe? The women of Caer Laverock, said Myrddin, have potent powers and warrior skills, and they are canny. They have outwitted Myrddin. His men have retreated. And will feel the full wrath of our revenge, one warrior declared, the others shouting their approval, cheering. Then Gwendolen spoke. Myrddin has certainly shown his true colours, but this attack is surely meant to be a provocation. We must not play into his hands. However, Gwendolen knew there would be war. Innocently, Bardsey Island, 2023. I'm standing on the mountain. The sun is newly risen, hazy behind thin clouds, pushing through, kissing the rippling sea, making a pathway of sparkling light on the expanse of blue-grey sea. Sea and sky parted only by the shapes of mountains on the distant mainland. Wheat ears and pipits trill over the golden gorse. Last night, the seals sang me to sleep. They call still, mournful for what is lost. Long ago, city of crystal rose up from the depths of the sea to form this land, beaming out its bright light, its own seal song of creation, restoration. Tears of gratitude stream down my face as I reflect on the long journey of my ancestors, every step bringing me closer to this place, now. The Battle of Arderith, 573 AD. battle was brutal, bloody, and long. Myrddin played his part, crouching at the edge of the battlefield with his wolf, urging the men on with words of power, songs of victory, conjuring up a druid mist to confuse the enemy. Finally, he leapt into the fray and fought alongside the other men. War bands, 300 men in each, had gathered against Myrddin. They fought bravely, but it was to no avail. Gwenddolai fell. Even so, the men fought on. For weeks they fought. Thousands died. And only when it was clear that all was lost did Myrddin flee the battlefield, knowing that whilst he lived, there was still hope. He ran northwards, he and Wolf, he leaping like a stag over the craggy ground, heading north up Eskdale along the river Esk, pausing at the girdle stones to make offerings to the river goddess, continuing through an avenue of stones to another circle, the Lupin States. There he wept and prayed for the souls of the dead. They continued north up the Annan River, diverting along a cascading burn that ran through a wooded glen of birch and rowan, ash and oak. Piercing cry of a buzzard heralded their arrival at a crevice opening up in the hillside. An ominous, dark gash, looking for all the world like the jaws of a dragon, red and black, and cutting deep through the jagged scree. A stream, bright, shining, flickering like a long black tongue. They made their way, following the stream, to the place where overhanging granite boulders made small caves, shelter enough from the worst of the weather. And here they drank deep draughts from the chalybeate spring, its water pure and bright, filled with restorative minerals. Myrddin doused himself in the water, washing off the grime and gore of the battle, but unable to clear his mind of the images that stayed there. This place would be their refuge in the months to come, but for now they must continue on northwards, making their way up, bounding like a stag, with the wolf bounding, leaping, clambering, climbing up a rocky waterfall. Reaching the top, Hart Fell, the nodal point of the Selgovai territory. This was the place where 3 rivers flowed, the Annan, the Tweed and the Clyde. This was the place where a particularly distinguished-looking apple tree grew. A magical apple tree. An apple tree that was an entrance to the other world. And Myrddin swiftly climbed up into this tree, feeling himself shifting, moving through, poised on the edge of this world and the next, alert and watchful. Wolf took cover too, his wolfy senses at their keenest, listening for the dogs, listening for the rustling of the trees, their allies all around, sensing with them. Eventually, the need for rest overtook them. But sleep was no comfort to Myrddin. All he could see were the faces of the fallen men, his brothers and friends, his patron and king. He could still hear their cries. He had other visions too. Trees felled in their thousands, a forest, this forest, the Celadon forest, cleared, reduced to a mere fragment, and all the life within it diminished. Animals hunted and killed. Some of them, like the wolf, the beaver, the boar, the elk, the lynx, completely exterminated. Every last one. Suddenly, they awoke to the sound of someone approaching. A wild sow, attracted by the fragrance of the apple trees. Ooh, I have never tasted apples like this before. Most delicious. They are making me quite giddy. Everything is sort of shiny and golden. I feel all soft and sleepy. What's this? The tree is shimmering. Is it the light on the leaves? Oh, no. Perhaps if I squint my eye. Oh, there you are. Man in the tree. What are you doing there? I'm hiding. Why? It's a very long story. Oh, I like stories. And so it was that Myrddin gained a new companion, a wild, story-loving sow. What could be better? He told her many stories. He told her his own story. It helped. One of the tales he told her she particularly liked. It was the tale of Hen Wen. For this story, we will travel to the south, to Cornwall. Once upon a time, there was a magnificent pig. She was tended by one of the 3 powerful swineherds of Britain. His name was Cole, Cole as in hazel, therefore a wise one indeed. She was white as a summer cloud, full-bodied as the moon, and though maidenly and motherly, also very old was she, and therefore was called Hen Wen, Old White. Cole tended her with great love and care, often taking her to the oak woods to feast on the acorns. And it was on one such occasion that she took her opportunity. She turned and trotted down the path. Cole immediately set off after her, but had great difficulty keeping up with her, for though fat and short-legged, she was very fast, and she did not slacken until she reached the coast, and even then she did not dally, but dove straight into the water. Cole, after a brief hesitation, dove in after her. They swam and swam for many, many miles. Eventually Cole was tiring, and he reached out and grasped hold of her bristles. She powered on, unhindered, until at last she came to Wales, to Gwent. They came ashore there, and to Cole's astonishment, Hen Wen went into labour. She gave birth to a wheat grain and a bee. Strange piglets indeed. But from that day, the fields of Gwent were known to be the best places for cultivating wheat and harvesting honey. After that, Hen Wen continued southwards into Dyfed, where she eventually stopped and gave birth again, this time to a barley grain and a bee. And from that time, the region became famous for its wonderful barley bread and sweet mead. After that, well, she still had not finished. She turned around and began to make her way northwards again. And I like to imagine her coming through the Preseli Hills and stopping off in a certain place, a chamber made by the ancestors. This particular chamber is known as Krigahuch, the barrow of the sow. Why not? Rest there for a little while in her sister's lair, while Cole trudged and stumbled through the hanging oak woods, perhaps getting a little lost. Eventually, they were making their way northwards once again into Snowdonia. And they came to a high hill, Cole's legs turning to jelly by this point, panting. The hill of Gaverdach. Nearby to another hill well known to you and I, Dinas Emrys, where two other piglets once lived. There, Hen Wen gave birth again, this time to a wolf cub and an eagle chick, thereby ensuring that though we have culture, we have nature, we have cultivation, and we have wild. A balance of the two. From there, she continued on into Ernesmont, Anglesey, and gave birth one last time to a kitten of unusual size and ferocity, a kitten that came to be known as Cath Palig, and one of the three great oppressors of the island of Mont. What happened to Hen Wen after that is obscure, but we know that she was a good swimmer. So, perhaps, humour me on this, she made her way northwards from there, swimming all the way up to Scotland, coming ashore at the Solway, Caer Laverock, perhaps even making her way to Hartfell. There, finally resting and restoring herself beneath one particular distinguished apple tree. The sow liked to think so. Oh, I've eaten a lot of those apples. I'm feeling quite strange. I'm feeling like I'm growing. I'm growing, and something is happening with my shoulders. There are wings coming out of my shoulders, and I am becoming a dragon. Oh gosh! And I'm taking off. I'm flying up into the air, flying up above Hartfell, looking down, seeing Myrddin, the apple tree. And Myrddin's sister is there. Let's follow her. Take this flying pig's eye view. You see Myrddin, his sister, Gwyndith, standing each side of the waterfall at Hartfell, balancing the energies, for you see there are energy lines converging in this place. These lines are called the Belinus and the Ellen lines, the male and the female lines, together forming the spine of Albion. This spine runs the full length of Britain. Let's follow it now. Flying like the wild sow southwards, fascinated by the weaving in and out of these two lines that some people call dragon lines. And we reach a place where there are two further lines, another pair coming from the west. These are the Michael and Mary lines. And they cross over the spine. And at the place where they cross, if we look carefully down below, we see a Neolithic figure of a horse carved into the hillside. Below it, another hill, a ceremonial mound named Dragon Hill. Oh, I can see a young woman sitting in the eye of the horse. Beside her is Myrddin. He's speaking to her. Look! Oh, he seems to have noticed us. He looks up and smiles. Be a 20-minute interval. The second half is much shorter. I hope you will return to hear the rest of the story of Myrddin as we follow him on from here. So enjoy your break and see you back here in 20 minutes. Innocently, Bardsey Island, 2023. I'm sat on the mountain, on what appears to be a man-made mound, overgrown now. I'm amazed and wonder how many Manx shearwater nests can possibly be in this mound. I find myself in communion with the choughs circling overhead. I sing to them, and they seem to sing back. In this mound, the Manxie's nest. In this mound, the wizard rests. In this mound are eggs and young. In this mound, the ancient songs are sung. In this mound, a sacred womb, life birthed and death entombed. In this mound, a spiral on the energy grid. In this mound are 13 treasures hid. Oh, how do we reach them? The choughs they wheel and cry. On a rock, surveys the scene, just taking stock. Down below, seals howl like hounds, guardians of these sacred mounds. And one by one the treasures appear, a chariot which we must learn how to steer, a shining horn from which all goodness flows. Heartfell, Igoglev. Rydach's men never did find Myrddin's hideout, and he remained there for many years, living wild on the wild fruits and the potent spring waters, guarding that place, balancing the energies there. But Myrddin was not the only wild man in the forest of Celadon. There was another. His name was Leloken, and he had undergone similar circumstances, fled from a battle, a terrifying battle, retreated to the wilds, living in the forest, communing with animals and trees. They said that these were actually one and the same, Myrddin and Leloken. They said that Leloken went mad. Some said this of Myrddin too. Maybe it's true. But more likely, both of them were in a state of mind that others just couldn't understand. The story goes that Leloken finally could not bear his exile anymore, and he gave himself up, appearing before St. Kentigern, naked and ragged, desperately, earnestly, requesting to be christened into the Christian faith. This having been done, our poor, broken outlaw became the victim of an apparently senseless attack by shepherds. He suffered a threefold death. They bludgeoned him. He fell upon a stake in the river and finally drowned, being swept away. The men claimed that it was Myrddin they had killed, probably receiving a rich reward from Rydach taking the glory for having rid the territory of this heathen wild man. And what did Myrddin think of being dead? Well, it actually suited him quite well. You see, now he could assume a new identity, come back into the world of men, take up a role again in the battle for Britain. He aligned himself with another king, King Arthur. He joined Arthur's circle, becoming an enchanter knight. And he and Arthur had many adventures together. One tale is of particular relevance to us and our story. It is the tale of Cilach and Olwen. It is an epic story. And I'm just going to tell us a small part of this story. It begins with a queen. She is pregnant. Queen Golaidith, wife of King Cilach. And from the moment she conceived, she could not bear to be within four walls. She spent her entire pregnancy walking in the fields, the hills, the meadows, the coast paths, the riverbanks. And when the time came for her to give birth, the story tells us that she went into a pig run. I have a suspicion, where better to give birth than within one of these chambers, these places of transition, where one can more easily access the other world. And if this is the case, perhaps she went into the one called Crig Ahuch, the barrow of the sow. For she named her son after the place in which he was born, Cilach, pig run. Sadly, not long after giving birth to Cilach, Golaidith died. And King Cilach married again, took for himself a wife who was already the wife of another king, but that's another story. She had a daughter. And when the two youngsters were of an age, this queen, concerned to secure the future of her daughter, made a proposal that the two of them be wed. But Cilach had grown up with this girl as his sister. He was horrified. He refused. causing great offence to his stepmother, who in a rage cursed him. She cursed him that he would not strike sides against a woman unless she be Olwen, daughter of Ysbyddaden ben Cawr. Now this was a terrible curse because Ysbyddaden ben Cawr was a tyrannical giant whom it had been foretold would only live until the day his daughter wed. And so he made great efforts to ensure that never happened. Any suitor that came seeking her was either killed or sent on impossible missions from which they would never return. But from the moment that Cilach heard the name Olwen, he was filled, every cell of his body, with deep love for her. And he knew that he must find her and make her his. His father advised him that he should go to his cousin and ask for his help. His cousin happened to be King Arthur. Arthur agreed and gave Cilach some of his knights to travel with him to seek Olwen and to venture out on the tasks that they would be given in order to win her. It is a long, long tale in the telling. But chief among these tasks, they had to get the comb and shears from between the ears of the giant boar, Tuach Trwyth, who was in Ireland. They gathered all the men they needed, the horses, the dogs, Mabon, son of Modron, who they found by searching out the oldest animals. And eventually they made their way to Ireland, found the Tuach Trwyth, tried to negotiate with him, and ended up in battle with him, chasing him back across the Irish Sea into Wales, Porthclais. There they set forth, hunting him across the Preseli Hills. Here and there were battles. Many men died and fell. There are still standing stones to this day that mark those places, with names like the Knights of Arthur or the Sons of Arthur. Eventually they chased the Tuach Trwyth all the way to the sea, to the Havren. And just as he leapt into the water, Mabon, son of Modron, reached out and grasped the comb and shears from between his ears. The last we see of the Tuach Trwyth, he's disappearing across the south coast of Cornwall, back into the place from which Henwen emerged. Cilach had completed his tasks, much to the dismay of Ysbyddaden ben Cawr, who lost his head. Cilach won Olwen, and in so doing returned spring to the land. Dergbouw, cymrwng o fedd gwen yn lyd ac wfyched is la goeden moyn ei si a ni cofion innau o fynedd daw yn tir llunio ni gyfrin a chai Linen au pyrau gwai yn hw'n straio O ddawns yn ein clwch yn wir Fyrdd yn anwyl Doedd yn dŵll yn wir Fyrdd yn anwyl Doedd yn Mae'n hangen of the breast Mae'n iesion byd y fi ac am fynd iddo chwchfam In un goflaid gwir mae En yes, jag blir vi kan vän det the hochfam in ing of light we. We've been to the east, to the west, to the north, south, and centre. Now we must go beyond to the other world. Anuvan, Avalon, the blessed Isle of Apples. So, I invite you to come with me once more to Ynys Enlli, Bardsey Island. It is a shining place made of quartz, continually cleansed by the salty sea. A place where the ancient ones gathered and made their mounds, their chambers, their gateways to Anuvan. To the priests and priestesses, the holy ones, the kings, the queens, this was the place of choice to end your days and be buried. And so it was that Arthur was brought here when he fell at the Battle of Badon. He was accompanied by Myrddin, loyal to the end. And Arthur entrusted Myrddin with the 13 treasures of Britain to be hidden here, secure and safe, until the time was right for them to be returned, when they were sought by those of good heart. Myrddin remained on Ynys Enlli, guarding the treasures for the rest of his days. He built a house of glass through which he could observe the universe. What better place for Myrddin to depart this world and ascend into the next, rising into one last Avalonian apple tree. Ynys Enlli, a place of breathtaking beauty. I'm intrigued by its culture, its history, by the stories of pilgrims, saints, travelling there to end their days and be buried among the wise ones of old. Animals gather there too. Seals in their hundreds, feasting in the rich waters and gracing the shores with their languorous, silky forms and mournful songs. Manx shearwaters in their thousands, finding every single crevice and nook in the island in which to make a place for their young, thus transforming the island into an everly birthing womb. But what of the apple trees? Are there apple trees on Enlli? Well, I'd heard tell of one particularly distinguished apple tree, a rare apple tree. The rarest apple tree in the world is on Enlli Island. I went seeking it. I sought too the 13 treasures, willing and ready to enter into the Enlli portal and open myself to whatever wisdom wanted to come. Perhaps these treasures are useful tools. There was the chariot that will take you swiftly wherever you want to go, a sword that will burst into flames, a golden chessboard with silver pieces that move themselves, a hamper that produces food enough for 100 people, a horn that will give you whatever drink you wish for, a halter that will call to you whatever horse you wish for, a cauldron that will only boil the meat of a brave man, a whetstone that will only sharpen the sword of a brave person, a coat that will only fit a noble person, a person of noble spirit, a crock that will give you whatever food you desire, a mantle that will reach to your feet if and only if you are virtuous, another mantle and a ring that will confer invisibility, and one further one that I've forgotten. What's the last one?
A crock.
A crock? We've said the crock.
I think you've done all, babe.
Oh. Oh, we must have added a chair.
We might have added a chair.
Ah, that's what's confusing me. I'm sure it was exact.
Sorry.
I discovered all these treasures, and I reflected on the meaning of them and how we might work with these things. For example, I'll just tell you an insight into one of the treasures, the chariot. I found a huge quartz boulder, and I sat upon the top of it, imagining I was on the chariot, and I meditated there, and I just got a sense of the chariot being an insight into how you can drive your own life, how you can master your senses, the horses, just like Arjuna and Krishna, and take charge of your own direction. So I also reflected on the others, but I'll leave you to do that. I've given you a bit of an idea of where to start. And there were other treasures on this island too, treasures just for me, moments of wonder. I sat on top of the island one day, just still and quiet for an hour or more. I'm not even sure how long, just enjoying the incredible views and all the birds. When suddenly a bird of prey, a light brown bird of prey, flew down and landed on the rocky crag against which I was leaning, a few feet from my head. It was a female merlin. Her yellow eyes met mine for a moment before she took flight. What about that apple tree? Still hadn't found it. On my final day there, I had a couple of hours spare before the boat left. So I went to seek out this small oratory that had once been inhabited by a hermit nun. It was a beautiful, tiny place, peaceful, with a very spiritual atmosphere. And beside this oratory was a pigsty, long passed into disuse. I found in the pigsty a feather which looked like it might be a merlin feather. I was really excited. I asked the warden at the bird observatory. He asked me where I'd found it. I said in a pigsty. He said, it's a wimbrel feather. And beside the pigsty is the apple tree. The rarest apple tree in the world. There. I was complete. And feeling very optimistic as I completed my visit to Bardsey Island, because this place is now a designated nature reserve. The entire island is there for the wild nature, for the birds, for the animals, the plants. It's also a dark sky reserve. There's no electricity on Bardsey Island. And people come drawn to this place in their thousands, wanting to experience the peace, the spiritual sustenance, wanting to observe the wonderful wildlife there and the dark skies, seeing the stars at night. Myrddin would be very pleased. So, I gather up the hazelnuts of wisdom that Myrddin has placed along the path. Wisdom to be found in the wild places, in the everyday places, in the hard knocks, in the soft blessings, in the whispers of the trees, in the eyes of birds, and the eyes of horses. I send a little love letter to my past self. Thank you for heeding the quiet voice. You have no idea what lies ahead of you, what stories you will discover, what treasures. Greatest of all, that miraculous wonder child. Myrddin hands us these treasures. Perhaps they will help us in our own initiations. Yes, we are all being initiated, like it or not. Life itself is our cauldron. We are being made and remade all the time. So I leave you now with one final thing. Dear Myrddin, how do we find you? If not in the gall-marked pages of scribes and scholars, in the visions of artists and seers? Perhaps in the stillness of grandfathers and grandmothers, perhaps in the coordinates of stones. Upon the spine, the tree of the world, you balance, poised like a far-seeing hawk, wings raised, an elemental nexus. Following now paths drawn by subterranean dragons, you whisper secrets to the roots of thorn trees, who sing them to the cloud-shaping sylphs. You bellow, leaping like a seven-tined stag, a shaman shout that breaks you out of the collective amnesia. Some say you are mad, like Sweeney in another tree, sprouting feathers, fur and claws, spouting incomprehensible stanzas. But is it madness to see so clearly more of the great all that is? This wisdom, encoded in stories, is passed from lung to tongue to stone to drum, tales of Myrddin wise and wild, conversing with creatures of one world or the other, tales of hen wen, great sow mother, birthing and rebirthing, sister and brother. Come all, let's imbibe the mead of the bees, those daughters of the south, beneath the singing apple trees, and so we may remember the wisdom of the land. We will draw secret meanings in multiple strands and weave them through stories that live and breathe anew. And there, dear Myrddin, we may find you. And there, dear Myrddin, we may find you, for these ancient stories are needed in the now, as are the sweet blessings of the great Mother Sow. And these ancient stories are needed in the now, as are the sweet blessings of the Great Mother South. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you so much for being such a lovely audience for this, the sort of debut of this full version of this performance. I performed last weekend with the wonderful Ailsa Mar Hughes as well at Beyond the Borders Storytelling Festival, but this is the full-length version, so thank you for supporting me in this, and I'd also like to thank Beth Ann for all her amazing work in helping me bring this. Oh, Beth Ann.
Well, I'd like to thank you.
There's a couple of other thank yous I hope you don't mind me making. One is to my wonderful, miraculous wonder boy, who has travelled this journey with me to Wales. And I'd also like to thank the Arts Council for funding this project, and the Arts Centre for hosting me tonight, and the gentleman who did this artwork, his name is Clive Hedger. He lives near Builth Wells, and the painting here is actually for sale.